Continuing on here, so we have the risk assessment side of fire. It's kind of a multivariate scenario because you have the predictive side and then the reactive side. So on the reactive side, we can see how hot the fire burned. Every night after a shift, we'll see a helicopter flying around with an infrared camera, and they'll kind of define the parts of the fire that burned extremely intense that day because there'll still be some relic heat that camera can pick up. So you start to get a severity model or severity map of that fire, and when you align that burn severity with governing variables, usually its slope and aspect, and then proximity to a drainage and also contributing slope area. Different models use different weighting factors on these contributing variables, but usually it's somewhere around a 60-meter slope of contiguous angle with no impedance by other roughness factors will contribute for your standard 10-minute storm intensity for your climate model. So it's all dependent on your particular climate model for the West to erosion. And depending on that 10-minute storm intensity, you can get different erosion effects such as sheet wash or specific particle mobilization by rain splash, or the larger effects of mass wasting and rilling. Of course, timing is also huge, as well as coverage. It seems that in the first 5 years after fire is the most severe potential for erosion and erosion effects, but we've seen that in some cases, specifically the Hayman Fire of Colorado, erosion effects can occur much longer, and the city of Denver ended up spending, I believe it was $30 million. It's on the second page of that poster there. I can't have it up while I also record this video, but they to mitigate the erosion effects, which was nearly a quarter of which they spent to control the fire itself. So the economics of fire response is certainly a pertinent variable. Obviously, we want to protect personnel and property, but when we start talking multiple $1 billion of fire response for houses that may not equate to that value in their actual value, but yet we still have fatalities on these fires, it's hard to define a unit against which you can compare the value of proactive or prescribed erosion mitigation against reactive and kind of status quo as we currently are techniques. But this is a discussion I wish I could have in person, because these are where the questions you bring to the table usually cause us to branch off into a different element of the predictive services to fire or the solutions to the management continuum. Usually on evolving events, especially when I was on the hotshot crew, these are many tens of thousands of acres of fire that have burned, dozens of structures by that point. People are running around chasing their tails, and we're purely in reaction mode. We have bulldozers going all over the place, cutting roads, saving houses, but also that dozer scar may last years. And we're getting pretty good at our rehab techniques. I specifically point to road rehabilitation techniques devised by the Rocky Mountain Research Station have shown pretty valid ways to reconstruct a road into the natural landscape and mitigate anything from like erosion specifics to invasive weeds and the view shed even of having a linear feature within a natural context. Overall, I'd say as I've given this talk under different circumstances, it usually leads to discussion on the benefits of prescribed burning, which I think points to the social expectations of fire and the social construct of fire being a bad mechanism. But I also think we need to talk more, in addition to prescribed burning, about designing a context to fire and future fuel potentials, as well as the public acceptance of fire as part of the natural regime, such that our response isn't as dramatic and that we kind of plan for fire as we build. But this is a difficult procedure. I am, again, remiss to be absent to this great meeting here in beautiful Big Sky country, but this smoke jumper training has been a life goal of mine that I have spent many years working towards. And as I am in the last several jumps of our program here until smoke jumper graduation, I cannot miss the rest of this training. I don't have time in life to regret things, and I know my experiences from my future smoke jumping career will allow me to be a better civil engineer or hydrologist, soil scientist, what have you, later on in life. So if you could please look at my resume and contact information at the QR code that you see on the poster there. I will also attach a link here in the bio of this video. Please refer any questions you have to me, and I would love to answer them when and if I am able. Thanks.